Welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the podcast from the Casual Watch Reviewer YouTube channel. Join us as we talk everything watches, from watch collecting, the latest horology news and interviews. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe on your favourite podcast app. Let's dive into the show. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 56 of Casual Watch Talk, and it's another video version.
Yay, video.
Yay. I'm only going to do this 2 more times till we hit 5, and then it'll just be like, oh yeah, we still have like a video podcast as well.
Yeah, and that's probably about the time when you'll forget that you have the audio podcast as well, and your audio listeners will be like, but you didn't describe anything.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get lazy and just be like, oh yeah, check this out. It looks so awesome. And then our audio listeners will be mad, so don't.
No,
don't let
we
that
won't.
happen.
We'll promise. We'll stay true to ourselves. So how have you been, Kris?
Try to describe it. Fairly good. It's been a little gloomy here. We've been, we've been suffering the 50-degree weather here. So I'm sorry. It's not. It's kind of overcast, and then it turns out nice. But for the rest of the country, it's been quite between us. The rest of the country's been quite chilly.
It really has, hasn't it? There's been like this freak winter storm. It's incredible. Like friends that I've got in Texas who haven't seen anywhere near this snow probably their entire lifetimes. Well, we did a wristwatch check last week. Should we carry on this week doing the wristwatch check? Well,
keep it up.
Do you want to kick us off then?
Today I am wearing my white dials in 104 on a very straightforward black NATO. I was inspired. I saw someone just have it on like just a black NATO, and I was like, gosh, this watch looks so good. Nice and comfy.
Yeah, with the white dial, it looks good.
Yeah, white dial, black NATO.
I've been wearing this new Veya that I got last week, and
nice.
I'd really like it. I'll splice in some footage here of me wearing it. What's so cool about the dial is I just thought the dial is so unusual. I think I mentioned this last week, and it takes a while to get used to it just because it looks so unusual. But once you get used to it, it looks awesome. And Stephen on the Facebook group, who has his own channel, his own YouTube channel now, which is called Quick Set Date. I'll leave a link down below. He mentioned, he's like, oh, that looks just like an old Jaeger LeCoultre Deep Sea. And I looked that watch up, and it really does. It's a very nice nod without being a homage, because that one was a compressor and an alarm case as well. But yeah, big fan of this Veya, and this will lead us on to some interesting microbrands that we'll talk about for the main part of the show, because I think these brands are really stepping up the game. Well, we did wristwatch check, so we do watch obsessions.
Yeah, sure. Let's go into it. So my watch obsession this week is a continuation of a conversation we had. We were talking about those Mark II. The Benrus, the Mark II, the bezels, and the inserts,
the Type 1s,
If you type in, or Type 2, right? Or Type 1?
I think Type 2's got the numbers on it, hasn't it? The Type 1 is just the dots, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. If you type in, Type 2 or Benrus homage into Google, wow. There's some options there. There's been a bunch of companies that have made them, and a bunch of companies still sort of making them. So there's, and they're hotly contested, like, internet forums are hotly debating, which of the versions is best. I had my eye on that bezel that we kind of talked about. And so I'm considering picking it up. It's for sale. Who's it? Namoki Mods has it.
That guy has been going for ages, hasn't he? And does he still? Is it all done through? Didn't he used to do it all through Instagram?
So you're thinking of Yoboki.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Seiko Boy backwards. Seiko Boy backwards. So Yoboki has gotten himself a real website now, which is nice. I haven't been on it in a while. So also something to check out. This is what I was checking out. So this bezel style.
Okay, so it's the 12-hour bezel, but has the increments for the first 10 minutes of the dive timer.
Yeah. I think it's just so sharp looking. So really like that. And so I was looking at some options, and then it made me harken back to one of the first Seiko mods I did of a military, and I'm considering doing another one with sort of that style, that military style. I did this watch here with actually rock tumbled, or for a bead blasted finish. Actually put it in a tumbler.
Oh, right, okay.
To kind of get that.
So like a geologist rock polishing tumbler thing.
Yeah, like or the Harbor Freight rock tumbler, and then used various different. So like I had some experiments where I used various different types and coating, of different material in there, vibratory tumbler. And so did some different, looks to it. And I just was looking, I was like, wow, that turned out really well. I'm really proud of myself here. So, maybe something like that with like the 24-hour, the 24-hour bezel, that Seiko 5. They do make one, of these that is all loom, but you kind of have to like find it. But yeah, I ordered parts to make 2 watches. I ended up with the fun postmodern mod that I did, and then this military, and ended up selling both those. So, but had a lot of fun making them. It was kind of my first foray into watch modding. So that was my.
You just before I go on to my session, you just totally reminded me of Todd. I know we weren't talking about Hodinkee, but there isn't an episode that goes by that we can't poke fun at Hodinkee. They basically released this book. So they've got a book called Daytona Perpetual. Just let me screen share this so we've got it up here. So essentially they released this book, the Daytona Perpetual Basic Edition. So the basic edition of this book is $362. So this is obviously an illustrated book. Now, maybe that's not crazy. It's a nicely printed book. Anyway, because it's Hodinkee, that 362 is by no means where they want to stop. So they made a deluxe edition of this book, $857.
So same book, but deluxe edition.
Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments of this YouTube video, but I think it's the same book. Okay. And then, not content with that, and not content with these 2 books being exclusive enough, one that's $852, the other ones, then they released a limited edition of the same book. Oof. I mean, they've added some additional finishing to the pages and stuff like this. 999 limited edition. Okay. This book is $5,205. They've put it in like a wooden box. It's
for all price ranges. Yeah.
It's obscene, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny because they keep doing it as like it's going to be, or it is already a cliche. It is the we have this thing that was $25 that we'll gladly make a special edition for and sell you for $175. We also have another version that we'll sell for $500, and then if you want to be in the special kids club, we'll sell one for $5,000. And you're just like, it's basically the same thing, but they're just selling it to like the different groups of people. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was sort of reading a bit about this. The $5,000 version. So it comes in like a wooden outer box, and then they're like, each of the pages is treated with a UV protection. I don't get it. Anyway, so that was you just totally reminded me of it when we were talking about the Ben Roos there. Yeah, so my watch obsession has been actually a watch that I already own. So I've been... You know how I've been obsessing about the Omega, the Skywalker, because it's been to space and it's the Annie Digi that all the astronauts use. Yes. Well, turns out that there's an astronaut that's going up in the next Tesla, the next Dragon SpaceX mission, Ben Hines, I think he's called. And he wears a Breitling B1, the same watch that I've got. And it looks to be a very similar model, except his was obviously an Air Force purchase, because This is one of the best things about NASA's website is all of the images are free and some of them free to use. So I use a lot.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of other YouTubers use NASA images because they're actually, I don't know whether it's because it's a government organization or funded by the taxpayer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, yeah, we paid for it. So I believe it's that. I believe that's correct.
So they take they've took a super high quality image of his, and you can zoom right in on the watch. I'll throw a picture up here.
Like surface of Mars, like 4K. You're like, some of those, like, if you want, I love grabbing, I actually just grabbed a Martian, they did a Martian panorama. We're getting ready for the touchdown of the next Martian rover. And I was excited about it, and I grabbed a Martian panorama for like I have a 27-inch monitor, and then I have another 24-inch monitor in portrait mode. And so I've got, something like 5,000 pixels here of space. And so I just grabbed a high-res download from NASA, and they have no problem handing you 128 megabyte PNG file. It was just, I was like, whoa, that's big, to the point where I actually had to scale it down in order to make it my background. I was like, oh, I don't need half of this, kind of things. Go good. Yeah. Good stuff for images. And so he's slated to fly on the next four person capsule.
Yeah, I need to look into this more, but I think it's the one where is this where there's private citizens going as well?
No, I think they're going to do another crew. So it's Crew Dragon 2. And then once they get there, they'll send Crew 1 home, because they had the demo that was just Bob and Doug. And then, who was either Bob or Doug, one of them had the X-33 on. And then this latest crop went up. We saw some X-33s. We saw, I think, an old school Speedmaster, if I remember correctly. Mechanical, and some Apple Watches. So, those are all, I guess, flight tested now. But it's funny because a lot of people were like they were asking about Apple Watches going to space, and I think this Crew 1 for Dragon, that might have been the first time they've had Apple in space. I bet an Apple Space Watch aficionado could correct us in the comments, but I think it might have been the first one. But got into a great discussion online about sort of like, if you want to really get excited about space hardware, check out the X-33. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and I just uploaded my 10 things you should know about the Speedmaster if you're new to watch collecting, and one of them was that Microsoft, I suppose, technically beat Apple to the game because they made that watch with Timex, that data link, which was a 1990 smartwatch. Incredible story to that, because it was the first smartwatch that could sync with a computer, but it basically would sync through light. So there was like a barcode that would flash on the screen. Probably ahead of its time, and probably not that useful, because you could put calendar invites and stuff like that in there, but just the small, it was a Timex Iron Man with a dot matrix.
It was very it was in the realm, or in the same era of Palm Pilots, infrared, so you'd have to, the handful of people that had a Palm Pilot for their calendar and their business stuff, and they'd you'd pop them next to each other and they could sync data. So same sort of
and there was a Game Boy game that did it as well, and there was a watch. There was Casio watches where it was a game. I mean, obviously you had the one that was a TV remote, but there was one where it was a game that you played between two watches. They're fascinating, some of those vintage. I think vintage Casios is what really got me into watches, because every time, especially in the 80s and early 90s, every time they brought out a new watch, it was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like,
I know. Yep.
Thermometer
had the thermometer watch, had the calculator, and then I had to let go of the calculator because it wasn't waterproof. And so I had to, and then stepped up to like a regular G-Shock, the old style G-Shock, and then, moved on from there. So yeah, lots of nostalgia right now about all that stuff. Very cool.
Let's dive back into the share here and dive into the news. We've got some interesting news stories, I think, this week. First one, I'll touch on it very briefly. Grand Seiko have released a new watch where the dial is supposed to be like a birch tree. From the photos, it looks amazing. I've seen some of these Grand Seikos in person. The finishing on the dial is like, it's next level. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't seen another luxury watch that has a dial anywhere close to a Grand Seiko, except for that Patek World Time that had the Coach Geneva, whatever it's called, on the dial. But this looks incredible. I mean, it's hefty. I mean, we're on Watch Pro here, and it's £8,500, so it's probably, upwards of $9,500-10,000 US. High beat movement. It looks good, but probably a little bit rich for my taste.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not for us, but for value for money. I mean, that price range, and to get that level of finishing, I mean, I think they're coming through. Now, this is the high beat movement. This is the 3600.
Yep.
36,000, excuse me. And on the back, I mean, just the back of that thing looks great.
One to definitely watch out for. Their next story is, I think it's been, I don't think we've ever talked about Patek so much as we have in the last couple of podcasts, but apparently 2020 was not a good year for Patek. Apparently sales slumped 20%, which I don't think it gives an actual monetary figure, but can you imagine what 20% of Patek's yearly sales are? Must be a significant
that's a big number. Yeah, that's a significant number. And tough to say what their what their margins are on their stuff, because they're doing in-house stuff. So, there's a whole bunch of stuff built in. I'm sure it's not cheap, but at the same time, they're trying to make it, the margin as good as they can. It's not it's a luxury product. They certainly can build in a bunch of extra in there. I wonder if it's the, if I recall, didn't they halt production like Rolex did?
Yeah, they apparently they postponed everything till this year. So it talks briefly about it in this article, but what I thought was funny is so the announcement's made, sales slumped 20%, and then the next story, and they're probably not linked, this is total conjecture on my part, by all means, take it with a pinch of salt. Suddenly it's we discontinued the Nautilus, but there also will be a boutique there'll be a boutique version of it still. So somebody, maybe the board of directors have gone, that's just not. But he's doing the whole, it's funny because this article's doing the whole, when Apple removed the headphone jack from the iPhone, and they were like, we've made the bold move to, remove, and everyone's like, no, that's not the definition of bravery or being bold. That's being cheap and not working out how to properly water seal a headphone jack so you can make the phone waterproof. Again,
we couldn't overcome the technical challenge, so we just decided, we opted out. Yeah, kind of.
Exactly. So now I must have like 3 or 4 of those little dongles, pain in the ass. Anyway. So apparently, the report in the New York Times is that the replacement reference for the 5711 will be quite major. It will be a better reference, he promises. So it's going to be a boutique only. But what you said last week, it also mentions in this article, and I don't know whether I'd ever heard this before, but yeah, apparently for the Nautilus, some of the waiting lists were 10 years.
Yeah. Just.
I'll never understand why, and it's probably not just the watch industry. I'm sure everybody in different collection, realms of lives, knives and things like that probably suffer the same thing. But why can't they just build another factory? I mean, there's thousands, a 10-year waiting list. It's thousands upon thousands of.
Yeah. I feel, if you had known that, I mean, if that had been known to them, I feel like, just don't touch it. Just let it go. Like there's no need to mess with it. I mean, you can make other watches, certainly, but I mean, if everybody's waiting for that, very, very hard decision from management, because they have to sort of figure out, and I was going to add to this. I wonder what the used stuff, because everybody's got quarantine surfing the web-itis, and I'm sure people with with $2,000 of disposable income are doing the same browsing as people with $25,000 of disposable income, and the same people that have $250,000 of disposable income. Yeah, we all have tablets and we're all browsing the web. So I wonder how much of that, sort of affected. I mean, I feel like Rolex is a good example of someone who's keyed into the used market. And we'll say like, okay, well, there's, we're seeing them for this, so we can make 9 of them.
Yeah.
And like and to continue sort of, if they're smart, they're kind of looking at that whole a whole chain of their brand. So I wonder if they're missing something there, because they had a lot of used sales, the price jumped, then they discontinued it, then they said, well, Not we'll do a boutique only.
Well, this is the funny thing, isn't it? Because what other business in the world would have a waiting list of customers for the next 10 years who have committed to buy the product? They want the product. You could probably take a small deposit off them, maybe, and then they're suddenly like, No, we're not feeling that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, especially with the COVID and everything that's happened this year, to have an industry where there's 10 years worth of orders there.
Yeah.
I still don't understand it. Same with Rolex.
Yeah. I mean, I can think so if you think early Tesla Roadster, I can think of some of the folks that just plunked down money. I was watching a good review on the original owners, the original creators of Tesla, and just the people that were just super excited about electric sports car and just shut up and take my money. But to your point, even when they had problems where they were they had manufacturing problems and they had issues with the electrical and the body harness and and all the connectors and whatever. And so they were recalling cars, they were bringing customer cars back. They couldn't provide enough customer cars. I mean, it still got to the point where you had customers that were like, okay, but where's my freaking car? You still got to that point where it's like, okay, where's my car? But I feel like here's a situation where it's like, well, we're going to open the velvet ropes and then you will be brought in and you will be given the experience of buying a Patek.
It's funny that you mentioned about the Tesla, because I've been watching this documentary on HBO about the Dale car, 3-wheel car back in the 70s. It ended up being a bit of a con, but it was when there was a gas crisis in the 70s in the US, and people take my money because it had a motorbike engine in it. It was 3-wheel. So similar to your Tesla story.
60 miles to the gallon, and then you didn't have to have you could license anything because it was 3-wheel, so it was like a tricycle. It was a trike,
Yeah, exactly. But I just don't understand it. And the new CEO's like, no, we don't want those 10 years of orders. We don't want these customers that are willing to, that love the product so much they're willing to wait 10 years for it. It's the same with Rolex as well. You wonder when I walk through. We were at the local mall today, and I walked through a place that had pre-owned Rolexes, and all they've got in the windows is the weird looking date justs when they did large numbers or some other crap or stars or something on the dial. That's all they had in there. I'm thinking, what advert is this for Rolex? Where you just can't get it. I mean, I know Hermes handbags does something similar, but I'll never. Somebody who's good at economics is looking at this going, this is the most genius thing that's ever happened that any company has ever done. Well, the rest of us are scratching our heads
this doesn't make sense. Right. Yeah, no, it falls right in that. It falls right in that humans are totally rational until they are not completely rational at all. And you're just we got him right there, just right when it comes out to of course we'll sell this thing. I mean, I can think of Silicon Valley companies. If you had if I had a company and I had 10 years of orders lined up, I literally would include that in my sheet of for an investor. I'd be like, the company is worth this because, oh yeah, by the way, we have 10 years of orders ready to go, whether we have the cash or not. that has some value.
This, especially Silicon Valley, like, oh my God, what amazing advance in technology did you make for 10 years with us? Like, well, no, actually, it's used a movement that we designed like 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
It's exactly, you know, we've made some minor tweaks to it, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, we have talked about it a lot. It's definitely feels like that, right in that like luxury goods, but also the like golden age of mechanical watchmaking, where it's modern and everybody is like excited about it, and so the prices are just, you know, and then in 30 years everybody's going to look back and be like, why was the Rolex Daytona $15,000? And so, and who knows, I mean, maybe it'll still be super valuable, but I mean, it's the same sort of, you know, like some of the prices of these things that just go up and down, and you're just like, what? Why was that?
You've just totally reminded me of something else. A classic tangent, casual watch talk tangent.
Let's do it.
Somebody mentioned Steinhardt on the Casual Watch Talk Facebook group. Please
the back
join
of your hair
it.
Stood up.
Yeah, so I'm no fan of Steinhardt. I'm no fan of, you know, those ilk of watches where they've just copied them. But Steinhardt have created a Daytona copy, I'll say, but the copy of that extremely rare custom one that had the sapphire dial that an aftermarket company created for, I forget which racing driver it was now, but it was one of these custom shops. It wasn't Bamford, it was somebody else, and they created a sapphire dial Daytona, made a very few limited editions. So Steinhardt have taken that, and then they've taken the rainbow opals on there. I could show a picture now, but I'm not going to, because I do not want to promote Steinhardt in any way.
Give them any.
But I was like,
photos.
what a bizarre thing to do, to take like two extremely rare Rolexes and then just like mash them together. And like, oh no, this isn't a Rolex. This is different.
You know what we need? Yeah. Oh geez. It's like whatever they're throwing. You know, they're throwing whatever will sort of stick. I continue. I have owned a Steinhardt. I think that their value as far as what the mechanism, as far as what they're providing, the ETA movements, etc., great. But yeah, it comes along that comes with a lot of baggage.
I always liken it to a Ferrari. Like, I can't afford a Ferrari, so I don't like lament the fact that I can't afford a Ferrari. But if somebody said to me, "Oh, Toyota just built this like almost identical replica of a Ferrari," and you'd be like, "Wow, the Toyota engine is obviously going to be really good," but it's still a copy of. It's still a copy of a Ferrari. It's just doesn't. I mentioned this in one of my other videos. You can fake the watch, but you can't fake the romance or the history that watch has.
Exactly. You nailed it. That's exactly right. And so as if you are a one watch guy and you want that cool looking homage watch, Steinhardt is a brand that does it, and it mechanically will be fine. Finishing will be fine. Nothing to write home about, but at the same time, it'll be fine. But at the same time, you and I, as you know, watch folks, yeah, good luck if we're caught talking about Steinhardt, because then it just opens up that discussion where you're like, oh yeah, they just basically made this crazy watch. This, you know, it's not their IP. They're not doing anything original. The stuff that they are doing that's original is few and far between.
Yeah, so. And somebody emailed me once after one of the Steinhardt videos I posted, and they said, well, they do this Rolex version of an extremely rare Rolex. I don't know whether it's called like the Red Triangle or something. People will know it. Anyway, Steinhardt made it, and he's like, well, nobody can get the original Rolex. So what if I want the look? And I'm like, well, yeah, you want that look because it is a rare Rolex. If Rolex made like 100,000 of these, and it wasn't rare, you probably wouldn't. It's that fear of missing out, or that like forced scarcity of things. But anyway,
right, yeah. There's so many good analogies of it. I mean, like every car that has a hood scoop that's just blocked off and it just has like a piece of plastic behind it. So she got this scoop, and you're like, so you wanted the cool sports car with all the scoops and stuff, but none of these scoops work. And so you're like, so you can't. You're not, so like, yes, it harkens back to a time in the 60s where you had the shaker hood and and the forced air induction, but none of that happens anymore. So then you're like, so that you feel like there's that disconnect where you're like, am I just representing, like, am I getting the feeling? And is that enough of a feeling? And I totally understand for some, definitely you and I, it's like, yeah, it's not enough. It's gotta be like, there are plenty of other watch brands out there that are in our price range, that have heritage, that have stuck to their heritage. So
absolutely, and we'll be talking about some of these later. It's so funny that you mentioned about the hood scoop, because my Mini's got that on there. It's got the hood, the air intake, and you can actually buy a kit that reverse engineers it into an actual air intake. So anyway,
so you can eat leaves, wet leaves, and birds.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It's great.
Okay, well, let's dive back into the news, and this is another story from Watch Pro, and they plugged one of my favorite YouTubers and all around nice guy. I've spoken to him a few times. He's great on Messenger, just a real nice guy. And this is Federico from Del Rey Watches. So
cool.
Apparently, I didn't know this, because we hear so much about John Mayer that I didn't realize that Ed Sheeran was also a big watch fan. Did you know this?
I did know that. I've heard that. Yeah.
So apparently, he had some 80 Tudor Black Bay watches custom made for his tour crew for a recent tour that he did. And not only for the video viewers here, I'm showing the back of the Tudor watch on Watch Pro that has an engraving on it, but also he had the dial done as well. So there's
wow. So Tudor did two there, the engraving on the back and the dial, and a special, looks like what was that? That's the Tor, the symbol of the Tor, the multiply sign.
It doesn't make it clear whether they got Tudor to customize these watches or whether that he sent it somewhere else to get them customized.
If I remember correctly, and obviously hit us up in the comments, if I remember correctly, it was Tudor that did it.
Wow.
So unlike Rolex will probably do this if you're a chic oil chic from the Middle East, but for the most part they're not doing those dual branded, or they're not going to do new dual branded stuff. That's a hard to come by thing for Rolex, but it looks like Tudor more open to that, and they pulled it off. And I forget the story. I'll have to link to the video. I think Federico has a video of how he came across it, or it mentions it here in this article.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to watch that. I just saw this on Watch Pro. I'll leave a link to it. If you're an Ed Sheeran fan and you've got $50,000 burning a hole in your pocket, then you're going to get a very unique Tudor Black Bay watch. One of only 80, and you had to be a member of the tour crew to get this. So I wonder, I haven't seen the video yet, but I wonder if, I'm sure he doesn't mention who he got it off, because I'm sure Ed Sheeran would be too
obtained
happy.
It correctly or legally obtained it, but no doubt.
It's got the whole kit, like papers and everything. Of course, as with most Tudors, it's on the NATO. Like I had to have my Black Bay 58 on the NATO.
Yeah. No bracelet here. So you're a roadie. You're fine.
Well, for our audio listeners, we'll just pause for a very quick ad break. Well, hello, welcome back everyone to Casual Watch Talk. So I thought, Kris, for the main part of this, we would talk about Microbrand watches, because most of last year, like, COVID didn't really affect the Microbrand community. There was still a lot of Microbrands coming out, and the same thing's happening this year as well. I'm getting contacted a lot by Microbrands. So I thought I'd talk about a couple that I was super impressed with last year. And then also, I don't know how you feel on this, but I'm worried when too many Microbrands are... When is enough? Like, is there ever going to be a point where there's too many Microbrands?
Yeah, like right, where is our saturation? We talked about Kickstarter last week or the week before, and I feel like that's an indication of maybe the time is slowly turning on. Everybody has a microbrand and everybody's producing, 100 boutique watches that everybody wants to get a hold of. I feel like that the time on that is ending. The sun is setting on that. Kickstarter definitely, that was the beginning of that, and certainly led the beginning of that. And now that that's not the case based on their sales and based on because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was like, where even when we started this podcast, there was like, at least I can remember at least like 3-4 that was just constant. This one on Kickstarter. Oh, I saw this on Kickstarter, and this is Kickstarter. And now that that's kind of dried up, I feel like the chain of events is naturally for some of these, boutique microbrands. So I would say get them while you can. That's one piece of advice. Just just like my sage wisdom on this is, I think when you hold out and you say, well, I'm waiting for, the perfect one, or they want to make this, or they're going to make this special edition, or and you're just like, because the time's ticking on some of these brands, maybe the time is now to give them your money and keep them afloat.
I'm quite selective with the microbrands that I review, and not for any reason other than I don't think. So a couple of things that make me choose whether I review a microbrand or not is, A, it has to be interesting to the audience. It's not about whether I think that, there's no reason like where I'm like, oh no, I would never review this watch.
Right.
But it's whether it's interesting, because I got what got me thinking about this topic is I got contacted by a watch company, and they had like an okay name, and they wanted me to review this field watch, and it was your classic paint by numbers field watch.
Right.
And I actually replied back to him and said, oh, you've got another interesting watch on your website, which looked a bit like the narrative I was thinking was, oh, this looks like some of the new Tissot watches. So you could kind of spin a narrative around the fact that this was a similar price, but mechanical versus the Tissot. And they're like, no, that one's, we've sold out of that one. So we just want you to review this field watch. And I'm like, well, then no, because what am I going to do? Yet another field watch video, like countless other YouTubers, where it's like, is this the rival to the Hamilton Khaki? Yeah. Well, no, it's not. Like, there isn't a rival to the Hamilton Khaki. It's just, that's just an all-round good watch.
Yeah, because it's $600 and just go buy it.
Exactly. So, I'm interested to know what they think. But I think there's some really good micro-brands coming out of Singapore for some reason. So we know... Boulder, I think, is from Singapore, and this Rise Resolute, which somebody sent me in, or this Rise Razor, I think they've changed the name to RSE, because everybody else thought it was, and I even said Reese on it, but it was supposed to be German for Razor. But they've sent this new dive watch in. Look at this, a titanium case, fully titanium bracelet. I'm not sure what the price on this is going to be, but it's going to be less than $500. Now, imagine if, like, another well-known brand had done a fully titanium. Look, they've got a fully titanium with fitted bracelet links. For the audio listeners, I'm just showing this up to the camera, but essentially it's a geometric cased watch with a fully integrated bracelet that fits perfectly into the end lugs there. So I think these guys are doing a great job. Again, really nice dial. And I'll probably mention Veer again, but for $500 and then for $800 for the ETA one, I think you're getting a lot of value with microbrands at the moment. And I'm really excited. I'm excited, but also apprehensive about the market. So I'm excited to see what some of these brands that I've really enjoyed will come out with, but also worried about the saturation of the market as well. So yeah, great conversation about micro brands. I'm excited about reviewing more this year. There's a couple that have remained very elusive to me. So if anybody from these brands is listening, I think, Kris, I could probably name 3 off the bat that I would really like to review.
Okay.
What about you? Is there any that you're interested in?
Yeah, I could probably come up with a couple. I'm trying to think. I would say, have you gotten to take a look at a Baltic yet?
This is a top of my list. I would love to review a Baltic watch, especially that GMT with the beads of rice. In fact, I think this, going back to this Veya, I like the bracelet that they sent, but I think if it had a beads of rice option, I think it would have just... But what Baltic have done with that GMT, and you can tell that one that we liked, the blue and grey, is the one that sold out on the website. So I think they must have underestimated the demand for that one.
Yeah.
Definitely one that another one I would really love to review is that Formex, the Formex 39mm version.
Formex is another one of those, very similar to like Boulder, where they're starting to get a style, an industrial sort of, like you could recognize it without looking at the dial.
Yeah, and they're less extreme than their very early watches. I think their very early watches were very like industrial looking, and it's funny that they've had success with a watch that's slightly more understated.
Yeah, I'd love to get my hands on a Halios.
Oh yeah, somebody asked me about that this week.
But
actually.
They are, either they're Instagram darlings for sure, and they sell out quick, and I see them all the time, and they have that one with just a 12-hour bezel on it, and that blue, that kind of soft off-white hand color, with a kind of what's the difference between not a sea blue, but
it's similar to that Zodiac, wasn't it? That sea wolf that sold out almost straight away, like a sort of like a navy-ish blue, but
very, very cool. Who else is on your list?
I would love to review an Okanoska watch.
Oh yes.
You hear nothing about. I've not seen one in person, but you hear nothing but good things about them. Did they come? Yeah. They came to speak, didn't they, at one of the watch groups? That I don't think I was in attendance then. But
yeah, I think so, because I've seen them. I've definitely seen them on the wrists of our OC Chrono fans. I know a couple that have them. Seen them pop up on Instagram. They do that. Relief cut, I don't know what it's called off the top of my head, where they cut out the numbers, so it's a stacked dial.
Oh yeah.
And so the numbers are actually sort of laser cut out, so it gives it the dial depth. Very cool, something very unique. They've got a super unique like handset, but again, I mean, there's another good example of like the design language is there, something different, something unique. It doesn't, yes, it's a field watch in this case, the one I'm looking at, but it doesn't necessarily your mind doesn't immediately go to Timex, and it doesn't immediately go to Hamilton. It's something unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's been a really interesting conversation. You'll have to let us know on the Casual Watch Talk Facebook group. And we're running I've decided to switch up the Facebook group, or Kris and I have, and we've started putting subscribers' watches or members' watches as the banner. So head on over to there. We've got Luke's watch up there at the moment.
Yeah, he takes some good photos. It's great.
He takes some amazing photos.
Yeah.
So head on over to there. Also, leave us a comment in the comment section now you can on YouTube. And thanks for listening if you're listening, and thanks for watching if you're watching. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.